You're listening to the ADHD Heroes Podcast, a podcast where we speak with the heroes of the ADHD community, namely educators, mental health professionals, and of course, those with ADHD themselves, to gain insights, tools, and most importantly, inspiration towards succeeding and thriving with ADHD. I'm your host, Rabbi Shmuel Reich, a high school Rebbe and an ADHD coach in private practice. Welcome to the show. Hi there. On this week's episode, we had part 2 of my conversation with Nesanel Epstein. This is the second part of his story. We discussed challenges with learning, starting his first business, perfectionism, his healing journey, including going to many different therapists, getting into debt and learning new skills to begin to get out of it, prayer services with ADHD, challenges in marriage, and a lot more. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you about another podcast I listen to called the Chinuch Today podcast. The host of the Chinuch Today podcast is former ADHD Heroes podcast guest, Rabbi Yerachmiel Garfield, Menahel of Yeshiva Torah Emes of Houston, Texas. Rabbi Garfield interviews a wide range of creative thinkers who are already implementing their valuable innovations in the world of education. So whether you're a principal looking for new ideas to implement broadly, a classroom educator looking for inspiration, or a caring parent looking for hope through what is coming down the pipeline, the Chinuch Today podcast may be for you. If you'd like an ad for your product here on the ADHD Heroes podcast, you can send us an email at adhdheroespodcast@gmail.com. That's in the show notes. Now for the regular episode. Enjoy! Nesanel Epstein, we're back for round 2. Let's do a quick little reminder about who you are and a little overview of what we discussed last time, and then we'll continue where we left off. Who you are, where you're from, what you do, go for it.
Okay, thank you for having me, Rabbi Reich. Really appreciate this. Who am I? I'm Nesanel Epstein. Where am I from? So originally I grew up in Eretz Yisrael until I was 5 years old. Then I grew up in Cherry Hill from 5 to 18. Then I went to yeshiva. Now I live in Eretz Yisrael once again. I'm daiging in Kol here in Yerushalayim Kodesh by Harav Shragi Kalas Shlita. What do I do? So besides learn, Hashem benched me with 3 businesses, ADHD, and had this close to work for Torah Anytime. What are the 3 businesses? There's Talisman, Sukkisman, so high-end Judaica, and then through Torah Anytime, Hashem helped me start my own video company outside. So it's called Event Video, where I do a lot of the same thing, just not for Torah Anytime or things that wouldn't go on, but for pay, hired outside. Yeah, that's in a mamish nutshell.
Excellent. Okay, so we left off, you were roughly finishing high school, I think last we left off. Where do you want to pick it up?
All right, so high school in a nutshell, yeah, 9th grade was the worst year of my life, but you know what? I grew so much looking back. 10th to 12th was great. There were ups and downs, coming from a Lakewood yeshiva to Chavetz Chaim. Derech Limud is very different. And I got a lot of help as a kid with Wilson. That was something my parents invested a lot of money in, training, reading comprehension. But I never really got that for Gemara. And just having different tutors or Beis Medrash guys or Kol guys, which I got, or like a Rebbe that wants to make side money, not when he's teaching. So that's not really the way to help someone with ADHD. And reading comprehension, maybe dyslexia, all the things that come with ADHD. So I made it through high school, even though in 12th grade it was also hard for me again with interpersonal relationship, friendships. That started becoming a chasm again. So I went back to Lakewood, as we said, to Rabbi Meir Zuckerman, which is great, but I never really fixed, Gemara was still hard, wasn't always clicking. They worked with me. I made it through. That's what I was going to say. I was thinking about this yesterday. Like I did my best, but it's today when you say you do your best, you put in all. I made it through. I made sure not to do my worst. I made sure not to get kicked out, but just to coast through. So that was high school in a nutshell. Also, so the tzitzis business, the Talisman, really started when I was 8 years old. Really, my father led a trip to Eretz Yisrael, and a guy couldn't make it. He's like, Rabbi, could you bring back a talis? So then when I was 8 years old, my father was like, hey, you want to learn how to tie tzitzis? So through high school, I was already tying tzitzis. It started as a gemach, not for pay, then it ended up being a business, Baruch Hashem. So I was tying tzitzis in high school. That's the point. My principal didn't make me take calculus and physics and this other side. So I was only doing English and history. So I had extra time, and I was just hanging out in the base medrash, tying tzitzis or trying to leave early on Sundays. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Why do it was going late? Well, what do we have school on Sunday? Hey, it's the shiva, but it was later. There's so many miscommunications, this, that, the other. But at the end of the day, I made it through. Looking back, I should have done, should have skipped 12th grade. There's no question. I don't know if I would have been mature enough to go to Eretz Yisrael and just pick it up there, but I should have done something different and not just wait out the whole year and tie tzitzis and this, or maybe get some side job. I don't know. But then moving along to my base medrash years, Eretz Yisrael, it was very, very hard for me. I grew really fast, and like I was the guy who like asked Nesanel for any type of tool or knowing where everything is in Yerushalayim. Like those skills picked up really fast as a way, so I had to build it up. But learning was very difficult. Staying up till 10:30, and then in CCJ, Chavetz Chaim Yerushalayim, they have Maariv at 10:30. Chavrusa struggle. I said in the first episode, Rabbi Mordechai Weinberger from Lakewood has a bunch of shirim on Torah time on ADHD. So he talks about this, the ADHD Chavrusa struggle, books, shirim, podcasts. So Torah time is a good resource from ADHD, but it's limited. So anyways, Rabbi Weinberger talks about that. So I had that and like went from one Chavrusa to another. So at a certain point, I didn't have a Chavrusa at all. So I was just learning Sefer Chavetz Chaim, which is great, but I wasn't really growing Gemara. The adjustment of just staying up really late, that really just sitting there and staying up late and trying to take in information. Like us ADHDers could stay up till 2 a.m, but trying to learn that doesn't go stem well. Then from Eretz Yisrael, I went back to Cherry Hill, and then they opened the base medrash over there. Before that, I was only high school, and then I went to Boca for 4th year. So really, first and second year in Eretz Yisrael, so a year and a half till after Pesach. Then after Pesach, 2nd year in Cherry Hill. Then Summersman, second year? Yeah, Summersman with Miami, but that was in camp in Maganab. 3rd year was on Cherry Hill all the way. Yeah, I think it was. Yes, like that I hooked up with Chavetz Chaim Miami in Maganab, which was great. That was a great summer. And then 3rd year, Cherry Hill from El all the way till Summersman, all the way to the end. I mean, Chavetz Chaim Summersman, not yeshiva Summersman. Sorry, if you know what I'm talking about, great. If not. And then 4th year in Boca from Elul till Pesach. Now, we're going to speed through this. Just, I had the same challenges, and it was great in switching yeshivas, which is classic ADHD, but in Chavetz Chaim, it's more common because it's the same yeshiva, just in a different location, different rebbeim, different setup. So it was great to be in Florida for 6 months. That was amazing in the winter. So that was great, but the learning was difficult, and keeping a chavrusa and going and the eon's really hard, and being in the Rosh Yeshiva shir because I was 4th year, but not really understanding it. It was very and then getting depression a little bit, ADHD depression. That means not clinical. That means what's the other depression?
Subclinical?
Chronic.
Okay.
Yeah, that's ADHD. Clinical is in the brain, and people need medication, and they're born with it, and it's a real condition. Chronic is it's limited. It's just emotional. So you now zooming on that for 1 second. When somebody struggles over and over, and people and adults yell at them and misjudge them, and peers, then you get depressed. You have a letdown, emotional letdown. So that's what happened. So I would just like show up for shiur and then leave in the middle or fall asleep, and it was great. But then like everyone was going to Queens. That's always when I was time. 4th year is in Queens. 3 years in Ranch. So the Rosh Yeshiva Rabbi Chinsky, who since left, he started Boca, and actually was a Rebbe many years in Brooklyn, then opened up the yeshiva in Boca. Now is one of the 4th Rosh Yeshiva in Queens. So he got promoted. So anyways, when he was there, he said, I don't know if Queens is good for you. I was always wanted, like a Chevron, I wanted to be part of the guys. So I was like, yeah, I want to go to Queens. But he was right. Like, I'm going to go to this huge yeshiva with 200 guys, and I'm struggling here. And he didn't tell me I'm struggling, but it was understood. So he said you should go to Mayan HaTorah, which is in Queens, which is like Chavetz Chaim, YU, and Landers. Meaning they don't have a college program. You fill that in the afternoon and at night, and a lot of people go to Landers, but it's more flexible. Shachar at 8 o'clock, not at 7:30 or 7:40. Night Seder starts it's set up for guys to learn and do college, and it's for older guys, and they have a higher level of learning, and the shear is on a higher level. So I went there, but I only lasted there like from after Pesach till June, whatever. And I ended up just like tying tzitzis in the back again, um, and I had a chavrusa. I was learning with Rebbeim. It did. I didn't. I don't remember. But it's one of these places where people in Chavetz Chaim wind up, and then they make a decision. Now, with me and out of town and in town, growing up, New York City did not work out for me, and it's probably RSD also. But just I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't know anyone there. I didn't see my future like building. There are a lot of guys that are independent, so they're in yeshiva, they grow, and then they end up getting married. But ADHD, I didn't have those skills. I needed to be with my family. I needed to like have a comfortable place where I could grow at my own pace. So I just advertised tying tzitzis, however I did it, putting up signs, which I don't do anymore in business. Those things are job versus entrepreneurialism. So back then I was putting out business cards and taping up signs and going from shul to shul, bulletin boards, and sneaking in ADHD style impulsivity, just like coming into a shul. And if the bulletin board had that key with like the glass, seeing if it's open and putting it in or taping it onto the glass. And I got a lot of hits. And this is really cool. A frum cop in Queens called me up and gave me asked me to tie 6 pairs of Arizal Tchelas, and ended up giving me, he gave me one of these guys. Thank you, Hashem.
What is it?
It's a real get out of jail card free, but only for tickets. And it doesn't always work because I was on a date and it was during Corona, and I parked in this parking lot, and this cop and basically I used it on a date, and the guy got so mad. And actually, then it did work, the cop, but one time a cop threw it down and said, "Well, take this back to Officer Wick." And anyways, so it doesn't always work. You have to know how to do it also. But it's one of those cards that you could get off from tickets because you're a friend of police or you're a relative. So get out of jail for it's out of speeding. So he gave me one of these tickets, not tickets, one of these cards, and I didn't know how to tie. And this is part of the business also, on ADHD specifically. And for all those in business or perfectionism, how to be it, just start. Everyone says this, just start. It's called B work versus A work in the formal way of saying it. You don't have to, and I still have this struggle right now. If you go on the talisman.com, it's down. It's taken me 3 years to make my website because I want to have the Amazon of Citrus and make it perfect and have every single minhag possible. But you can't do that overnight, especially without a partner and without a neurotypical in the business. So you have to just do the best you can, and then you build on it, make it better and better and better. And even then, Amazon wasn't as the way it is now. Apple, the biggest machokas, when Apple made the iPhone 1, did they have in mind the iPhone 16? They ask you like this: every phone, do they plan the next phone, or they only focus? Are they 3 phones ahead? So it's the same idea. Just start where you are. So anyways, I got this order, and I'm like, I don't know how to tie a Rizal tzitzis, and I only knew Ashkenaz and Sephardi back then. So my good friend Hadar Meir, and actually his twin I learned with in Eretz Yisrael and CCJ. So he told me, he's like, if you want to be the talisman, you got to learn every single minhag possible. So I quickly learned how to do a Rizal tzitzis, the minhag Rizal. I found videos on YouTube. Since then I learned a lot of the halachos, and one day I want to give shiurim on halachos tzitzis, and I want to. I'm looking for a be'iyun halacha kol that's shagging halachos tzitzis one day here in Eretz Yisrael, and for Arba Minim too. That's for the Sukkot men. And then my dream is to go get certified, but they don't really have like a Vada Kashrus. So go to different tzaddikim, let's say Shmuel Kamenetsky or first in Chicago and here, or Yitzchak Berkowitz or big names, and get tested and get some letter or something. So that's what I want to do. Anyways, I spent time and I realized there's a whole world out there of techelas. This actually happened in Boca also, right before my flight. Like I got this other order like a few days before, and I accepted it. And a lot of in the yeshiva, I was doing this side hustle. That's what happens. And I didn't even know. And back then in Boca, it was Sefer Chinuch, and I'm like, this is a minhag. I never heard of this. And like it was like right before my flight, and I had someone help me. I got called my friend. I'm like, I need your help right now. I need it. So deadlines, last minute, everyone can relate to it. Anyways, I did tied up a bunch of pairs. I got this guy his tzitzis done. I think I didn't do 2 pairs, and like 3 years later I mailed it to him. I don't know, something with ADHD. Long story short, that really kicked off that I realized there's a whole world of techelis out there. I started studying. That summer I spent in Chicago with my aunt and uncle, and I built a website and I just researched a lot of different types of techelis, and um, what ended up happening was from there, I spent time in Chicago. My uncle was going to hook me up with a job, but ADHD and jobs, that's very hard. So I ended up just building a website, building my, making my Shutterfly book. We didn't discuss this in any of the episodes, so we'll discuss this now shortly. But I had the trip of a lifetime. I went to Europe. Thank you, Shem, to Slobodka and Vilna and Kovna. And that was incredible. And I had to like thank my parents and my Rebbe. My Rebbe told me, he's like, do it now before you get married. Because now, like, my wife's not letting me go. But that was incredible. So I did that. A yeshiva guide trip, Bein Hazmanim. You go right before Pesach. I went from Boca to Philly for Shabbos to Cherry Hill. And then from Philly flew out to Frankfurt. And then from Frankfurt to Vilna, did the whole trip. And then went back to America. Normally I do it from here. You leave from Eretz Yisrael, Tel Aviv, you go to Europe, and you fly to New York or the West Coast or wherever you're from. Anyways, so that whole summer I worked on my book. And looking back also, that was a great trip, but I stayed up late. I didn't go to sleep. I was exhausted. My mother warned me, like, I don't want you getting lost in Europe. And I was the last guy. And every time on the trip, they're like, is Nesanel here? Okay, we could go. Every time. But I told my mother, I said, Fakir, I got to stay the longest by each thing, each kever, by Auschwitz, every single place. I was there the longest. So I don't know if it really makes up, because if you get off the bus first, then maybe you have to do it like that. I don't know. But so it was a good summer. I just didn't get any jobs. Fine. Then I came back to Cherry Hill, and then I called up my Rebbe, and I'm like, I want to come back to yeshiva. And he's like, okay, you got to speak to the mashgiach, because he switched. He became the 11th grade Rebbe. Now he opened up Chavetz Chaim in Seattle, so he's the Rosh Yeshiva over there. So anyway, he's the mashgiach now, and he's like, okay, you come learn in the morning, we'll get you chavrusa. And then I started learning, and it was good, and I did get in a bunch of years before, but it started not clicking, because I was already in a different stage of life. So like a 7:30 chakras was not working out for me with ADHD. I had the other way. It's not about not getting up. It was too late, and my brain's already starting earlier. So it was before Yom Kippur. At some point, I realized, okay, I got to get chavrusas. So I tried one chavrusa, and then that didn't really work out, because he wanted to do he wanted to split it 50-50, like do some of the reading, like a lot of chavrusas. But that's not how my brain works. I need what they call the silent reader. So that didn't really work out. And then I moved on to and Baruch Hashem, I found other chavrusas. And so I would get up every morning at 6 something, maybe 5, 50, 30, whatever it was. I probably got the shul 7:15 if it was 6:45 minyan. Whatever it was, I davened at 6:45 minyan, learn at 7:30 with my chavrusa. Shout out to Mr. Schatz at Cherry Hill, Shalema. And we used to learn with him 7:30 at the white table and in the lobby of the shul. And the greatest thing was there was an 8 o'clock minyan too. So when I didn't make the 6:45 minyan, to show up at 7:30, learn at 7:30, and then daven at 8. So I had that scaffolding. It was a very good setup. And then I would go out, actually then go to the Cherry Hill Kol from there, and I had a chavrusa there. And I would learn with myself till 9:30, 9 o'clock, became 10 o'clock. So I had like my whole morning routine, davening early, learning, then have more learning, then learn myself, then come home for breakfast 10 o'clock. And in the Judaica world, you start at 10 o'clock. So I would eat, then work the whole day, do different things, errands, this and that, and then have a night seder. I did have like my parents made me get my brother, which was very hard. I had to drive like an hour, go pick up my brother from a different school, and it's hard, The same thing happened when I got married. I became the babysitter, and a lot of entrepreneurs have this, even without ADHD. The wife's working a 9 to 5, and like, okay, so you have your own schedule. You make your own hours. So you watch the kids and work whenever you feel like. So that ended up having me round 2. Like, oh, you're around, you're home. So you're going to help us so we don't have to pay someone, and you're a son. So you're going to do this for free, obviously, right? So that was very hard with ADHD. And it didn't make it better that now looking back, and I didn't know, but that my brother had ADHD, and 2 guys with ADHD together with a guy who's trying to figure out his life who's much older. and someone younger who it didn't work out. I remember one time my brother like just got up in the back seat and like walked to the front of my car while I'm driving. So, but years later we joke about it and we love each other, and he was just here learning Eretz Yisrael, and it was great. So and he came for many meals, and you grow up and you learn how to get better.
Okay, should we take a look at your healing journey? When did that begin?
Yeah. Let's jump into that. What ended up happening was I transitioned from the yeshiva, then to just post yeshiva, then I ended up getting married, then I went back to Cole, and then I should say back then I went into Cole, working Cole, both. It's a very interesting Cole journey, and then it brought me to healing. So let's go into healing. Let's start, and we'll
Cole
jump
itself
in.
brought you to healing, or life brought
Yeah,
you to
yeah,
healing?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Marriage brought me to healing too.
What did you encounter, how did that bring you to healing?
Okay, well, here we go. So I get married, and like a good Ben Torah, like it was understood I'm going to learn for the first year. So, but we wanted to move to Eretz Yisrael, so we settled in Muncie. My wife's from Passaic, so we settled in Muncie, and then my father got me in, and even then, like as I got older, you have to pick where you're learning. At a certain point, you have to run your own life. Your parents could guide you, but like they don't have a say anymore. So we made that mistake. Also, I remember my father walking me home from shul when I was little, when I was in the 12th grade, and he's like, "So where do you want to go there in Eretz Yisrael to learn?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know anything about yeshivas." And he's getting frustrated now. And as a community rav, he knew the yeshivas. He was on the scene over there. And like every year he would go and visit all the guys in Shivas and take them and have one like Cherry Hill night in a restaurant, like a lot of out of town rabbis there. But I wasn't holding. I just didn't know. And it was just like so hard. So even I'm about to get married. My father was like, "Okay, we have to pick a place for you to learn in Muncie." So that was difficult. So it ended up settling on Or Sameach Muncie. Now, like that didn't go with me, just ADHD wise. Like I'm not about tshuva, so I'm gonna go to a Baal Tshuva yeshiva. Like now a lot of guys like this. They go to Aish or they go to Or Sameach. Or some people like this. I even heard Rabbi Kalish talk about there were a bunch of guys from Lakewood that came to learn in Waterbury. They wanted a different and it's a thing. Sometimes people do it and they do very well. But what happened was this was the first part of my healing. I showed up there and I wanted to ask a Rebbe a question, and it was my fault. I interrupted him after shir or something, and he got so mad for interrupting, and it like hit me the wrong way. And also, they were on such a high level from Chavetz Chaim. They're already up to Marsha this first day in shir. I'm like, I can't learn here, Chavetz Chaim. Like, I didn't even know the Mishnah. What do you mean? How are you on the Marsha? I didn't even forget Toast. So, and after a week, I'm like, I'm done. And this Rebbe like really mistreated me, but he was tough, and I'm not blaming him, I'm not judging him, but I'm like, I'm out of here. So that like caused huge disappointment. Like my wife was like, you dropped out of yeshiva already. Then months later I told her what happened. She's like, okay, I don't blame you, but I was just like pushed into it, and then so I went back to my old way. I learned in Shiners every morning. Then she went to work, I went to Shiners, I davened, I learned. Then I came home, I worked, did the same thing, but this marriage started getting so hard. And I'm like, what in the world is going on over here? And, but there's just that disappointment. Now, fast forward, it took a long time to figure out that my wife has ADHD. Also, let's discuss marriage, dual ADHD marriages. But that was like one main thing, like adding in too much or just not on the, like just having a million, life hitting me at a million miles an hour, like David Becker talks about. And at that point, I got an investor for the business. Shem hooked me up with that. And so it was more like a business coach / investor, meaning he was giving me money. He does chasadim for Cole guys, our guys out of yeshiva. This guy, I don't want to say his name because I don't want people calling him, and he doesn't do it for everyone when he's a big tzaddik and mensch. So he struggled. He bought a business after yeshiva, and then it ran into the ground and suffered for 5 years. He has his own story. So he became successful, but so he helps people in my boat or people that need assistance or gives them capital. Sometimes as a present, sometimes lends it. So through a friend, he hooked me up with this tzaddik, and I started doing that. And then he was telling me, he's like, you got to do the hardest thing first. And he was coaching me a little bit of ADHD, but I didn't really know it was ADHD. That was part of the problem. I thought it was time management and just all the trauma of my childhood trauma, my parents yelling at me, you're late. My grandmother, time management. I could still hear her banging her watch. So one thing led to another, and I remember like we were supposed to go to my family for Pesach, and we didn't go. I didn't even do Bedikas Chametz that year. I had 6 orders of tzitzis to tie in Muncie, and then my wife was like, all right, I'm going to sleep. And I was like 11, 12, I'm still working. And I missed Bedikas Chametz. So things were just like not working out, like just functionally. And that's what happens in an ADHD marriage. We had ups, downs. But I just couldn't understand what is going on over here. So, and we just left for Pesach with a flat tire in the driveway because we had 2 cars. Yeah, my car had a flat tire. It wasn't my wife's.
So who did you find? Meaning, who did you find to help turn things around?
The flat tire or my life?
No, no.
Which
Oh,
one?
no, your healing journey.
Oh, okay. So it started. Anyways, I called Javier when I got back from Javier in Muncie. So it was really a combination. Before I got married, my father hooked me up with this guy named Dr. Buzz, and my father also said if you want to do second year, if you want to continue in yeshiva, you have to go to this coach. End up being an executive functioning coach, executive functions, but is more I think for neurotypicals. Anything you do out there needs to be geared with ADHD lens to heal. You can listen to Dave Ramsey, who is not. It doesn't say anything about ADHD, but you have to learn the ADHD way. And then once you understand that, you could learn from Brian Tracy, very good resource, time management, and one of the top motivational speakers and in North America. You can do neurotypical things, but you have to get Malumet in ADHD first. So my father got me this life coach, and he's a doctor. He has a PhD in brain stuff. And, but the difference between him and Dr. Amen is Dr. Amen understands ADHD, even if he's controversial. He still understands ADHD. Or, Dr. Ned Hallowell, he understands ADHD. But this guy, Dr. Buzz, he knew about the brain, but he was more of a life coach. So my healing really started before I got married, where my father set me up with this guy. He made me get up and meet him at Starbucks every day at 6 a.m. So it was wonderful because it got me to realize that there's like a whole nother world out there of of high level achievers, early morning people. Exactly what I like. I am a morning person. Just I overdo myself and just ram myself into the ground till I'm like burnt out and depleted and then fall apart at night. So I saw like I could do this, and then I started getting to shul like at 6:50, only 5 minutes early, and I saw like, whoa, half the minions here. There is a minion, and half the parking lot's filled. Really, like this, it really awakened me. So, and we worked on to-do lists and jogging and exercising and eating protein. Now, he left out all the ADHD stuff. So after like 6 months or 5 months of working with him, it all went out the window. And I, so, but that was a whole new journey. Executive functions, that lady didn't really work, and it didn't work. And you can't there's a great guy named Dr. Lee Balcom. You ever heard of him?
No,
He has
I did not.
Okay. So SaveTheMarriage.com, wonderful resource, especially for ADHD. Even though he's not talking about ADHD, but a lot of people with ADHD need to save their marriage. And he has a book. You should get it on Amazon. It's on Amazon. And he says in his whole episode in his podcast, Save the Marriage podcast, that never drags a spouse to therapy, ever, ever, ever. So never drag a son to therapy either. I'm adding that in. And that's what was happening to me. And there's just going to be resistance. But he says like this. He says you could invite your spouse to therapy. Or you can invite your son. Or you can maybe like incentivize it, or do it in a way that get the person to want to do it themselves, or try it out, or that's really how you do it. But the force is not going to work, and it didn't work with me. It just didn't work. So fast forward, I'm in Muncie. I'm married, and I'm hanging around Shiners. So I met one of the Gabaim over there, and turns out he's a Chassidish Slonim Chassid who's a time management coach, time management coach, productivity coach. So I'm like, all right, we got to meet. And I pushed him because he wasn't really doing that. He was in between jobs. He was the guy at Shiners to move the minyanim, which I love about that shul. I don't know any other shul like they have someone like they don't even have that at the Kosel, and they just have guys clean up the chairs. So so I've pushed him, and eventually he made an appointment. I think it was $120, and we sat down, and that year was Corona, the end of Corona, and I was hired to do a Purim Suda. And what are the 3 jobs that Dr. Russell Barkley says that people with ADHD have? Really, he says 2. I added a 3rd.
I don't
Most
know.
common jobs for ADHDers are videography, cooking, that's what my brother does, and DJing. And I add in DJing because I know, but stimulating jobs. And I've been a mashgiach with food, so that goes into cooking. So, so I DJ'd a number of Purim Sudas. So it was but it got canceled. And when I went to bring the Rav Shalach Manis, who hired me, he took out $200. No, $400. So I think it was gonna, and he just gave me $400 cash, real mensch, and said, "You don't have to." He said, "I don't want you to lose because of the pandemic," and just paid me, even though I didn't work at all. So I took that money and I paid this Heilige Yid, and he looked and he told me 3 principles. He said, "You are catastrophizing, which means that you're making the small things big and the big things small," which I still do, but at least I have the clarity, and you have to work on that. He said you have to focus on one thing at a time, and I don't remember the 3rd thing, but it was very eye-opening. It was just one thing at a time, and I don't remember the 3rd thing, but it was very good. He was like, "Okay, so how long did it take you to get here? And you got here on time. And how many steps did it take you? And when were you?" It was great how he put it on. And it was the first experience of a frum professional. And he's like, "Okay." So he said, "What's bothering you the most?" I'm like, "I'm behind taxes." And he goes on like a whole arichis. He's like, "Only," and he's Hasidish. And this is why it was even better. He's like, even the Ran, and it said in Maka, I forget where he said, brings down, according to the Ran, you have to pay taxes. And it's not klar according, and it was great to hear like the way that I always wanted to hear it, that like al pi halacha, al pi hashkafa, the right, not these, not like just a secular person working with me and asking me like questions about Judaism. So that was really eye opening, but it didn't help because it was just time management. It wasn't ADHD. Fast forward, I moved to Eretz Yisrael. Our whole life gets flipped upside down because we moved to another country. And it was just exhausting with ADHD. New country, new currency, new language, new offices, health insurance. Everything's different, to say the least. And my daughter wound up in the hospital, and it was $5,000. Dave Ramsey says that, it was just all these crazy things. So one thing led to another. And I realized one day I shouldn't just put it in my head, ADHD. And I went on Spotify and I just typed in and I heard one podcast and it led to another. Started with the ADHD Essentials podcast, Brendan something, which led to Eric Tivers because he was a guest, and also Dave Greenwood. I recommend all these 3 podcasts. And then I did something which is very cool. I started from the beginning of Eric Tivers' podcast, not from the new episodes, from the old episodes. From the first one where he's saying his journey and his story from Chicago, and he starts laying out the basics. I really needed to get an education. And I got so much clarity till I outgrew his podcast. And a lot of these podcasts have guests. So you jump from, and then once you hear a guest, you go to there. I go to that guy's podcast, or just binge listen to them on all the other podcasts. And I started going and going until I realized it was ADHD. And then I realized, okay, I got to get myself help. But I didn't know where to start. And I started getting just the clarity. And that was the 5 things Dr. Russell Barkley says: education, therapy, coaching, and medication. And the first one is owning your ADHD. So owning your ADHD, medication, coaching, therapy, and then medication. It doesn't matter which order except the first one, owning your ADHD. So I owned it because in the podcast, I'm like, that sounds like me. That sounds like me. That sounds like me. Oh, this whole thing is ADHD. This is not time management. So, and this is after like running businesses, losing money, getting into debt, all the things I didn't know were symptoms. And like, I was shut down the business. Like, no, we're not. There's so much opportunity out there. I'm going to do it right the next year. And he's like, okay, can't you see from your mistake? So, one night I just type into Spotify ADHD and marriage, and then Eric Tivers' interview came up with Melissa Orlov oh, so I got involved with her, and then I got her 2 books. I still don't do her seminar, which I highly recommend. If you could do it in person, it's probably better, or just get this Zoom recording, because I was like, oh, you know what? From 3 a.m, this is going to get me to get into bed early. I'm gonna wake up at 3. I'm gonna listen every day live. I can answer I'm like, no, that's ADHD. I'm not doing that. Still never got it. Now I'm in the debt recovery stage, so cash only, and have to afford it. So if I don't have $200 allocated for that, we're not doing it, even if it's crucial. So ADHD in marriage. And then one day I typed in ADHD from ADHD, and Dr. Nachi Felt came up on this Chicago mental health podcast. And I'm like, okay, this is the guy. And my wife could attest, like every time I say, this is the guy. So I had to figure out how I'm going to. So it took me like 3 months till I actually made an appointment. And then there's a minimum $1,500. And he has a whole way of doing things. So I had to figure out where I was going to get $1,500. And then, long story short, we did the free session with me, session with the wife, session together, and then 3 sessions, and then it wasn't a good fit, so I moved on. And then but he hooked me up with a doctor in Ramat Beit Shemesh who he used to send clients in Philly, and it was great. So I went to him, and he's like, okay, and Dr. Felt was like, you need medicine and this, but this is the problem, everybody say out there. Number one, to quote Lipa Schmelzer, and I highly recommend listening to his healing podcast, don't spend thousands of dollars like he did, like I did. You really have to do a lot of research and find out who's the right professional for you. And every guy tells you, yeah, I can help you, but they mean well, but they don't really know. And a lot of times they're a business. So I go to this doctor, shout out to Dr. Halpern and Ramat Beit Shemesh. And so we did a remote evaluation, and he's hard to get in, 6 months. Rosh Chodesh El. It took from Tisha B'Av till Rosh Chodesh El to get in. Rosh Chodesh El, I do a remote, but it wasn't really good because you can't really do this remote. He prescribes Vyvanse. I got it filled. He had to email me the prescription and then get it to my doctor, and then it's a whole long thing. And I get it, and it was awful. And back to the first episode of being over-medicated, awful. I got more ADHD than I ever had in my life. I was sticking in shul 2 hours, schmoozing with every single guy. I had to do Torah Anytime work in Aish, and the head of operations, Mayor Summers, came down, and he's like, Nesanel. And I never got treated like people were like looking at me, like talking to me, like saying my name. I'm like, what's going on over here? Until I realized I'm done with this stuff. So that lasted a short time. Then I'm like, okay, I got to have a new evaluation. So from Rosh Chodesh Elul to Rosh Chodesh Chanukah, a long time, I went down to Ramat Beit Shemesh. I spent the whole day. Dr. Halpern, we did the whole evaluation, and he said, inattentive ADHD. So I said, what do I do? And he said, first of all, before you do anything, I want you to know that you know more about ADHD than me as a board certified psychiatrist. And I'm like, okay, what do I do now? Well, I do. So he's like, 3 things. He said, you got to get CBT therapy, you got to get a sleep coach, and you got to get a certified food coach that specializes in ADHD. Now, I haven't found that, so if anyone out there, maybe you have any recommendations, but I'm really looking for that, because I might be one of the 2% of ADHDers that Dr. Ned Hallowell and Dr. John Rady talk about of being gluten sensitive. I've recently started the Dr. Amen diet in his book, Healing ADD. I recommend that book. As always, with someone controversial, take it with a grain of salt. Use your seichel, use your chachma, to go out and just get your brain scanned for $4,000, which it's not fully, does everyone hold to that? I was going to do it, but then and my wife's like, so that's ADHD. You have to do chachma. So, and then CBT therapy, I ended up not doing. I did meet with a sleep coach, but it was a waste, $250, another money spent, because this guy was like, he said he knew ADHD. He has training in CBT therapy, but he's not, and he doesn't understand ADHD like you do. Shout out to our wife over here, and there are neurotypicals like Ari Tuckman and Dr. Russell Barkley. There are people that don't have it, that understand it. But when I had my meeting with him, I was talking so fast that he had to put his head down on the Zoom session. Like, hold on, I need to get my thoughts. So it was good, but I don't need a sleep coach. Nobody out there, and I'm even thinking I should go to a hospital, get a sleep study. But it's ADHD, it's sleep revenge procrastination, it's other things. Once you heal ADHD, then you can really work on sleep and getting sleep done, and you can listen to sleep coaches, and that's part of healing. One thing leads to another, and you have to go. You have to figure out you're going to run this ship, because as soon as you turn around the ship, first you're sinking, so you have to like tread, you have to get the water out, you have to or call for 911. You have to get help. Once you get above water, the boat's going to be going the wrong direction. Once you're able to sail straight, then you're in charge. Once you have control, obviously Hashem's in charge, but you are doing the shtalos to set the direction.
At what point did you feel like you had taken control of that ship?
It was only recently after this Iran war, but even then, I thought I knew after really the first point, Dr. Halpern telling me you know more about ADHD than me, and I was like, he's a certified psychiatrist. He just moved from Lower Merion, right outside Philadelphia, and moved to Ramat Beit Shemesh and opened a practice, and is 6 months booked, and moved to another country with his knowledge, and is an expert in mental health, and doesn't just do ADHD. And he's telling me I know more. Like, that's incredible.
Right.
And I even told him, I said, my wife called me like, why are you're not late to the appointment? So I knew that I was growing, because it was important to me. I mapped it out. I got it down. I had to be early. I was even like half an hour early. And I even went and saw his office, and then walked down the street, took out lunch, ate on a bench, and then came back and was 5 minutes. So I saw I was in the right direction. But then when my wife's like, your Amazon shopping cart is $200 worth of books, and I'm like, no, $500. And I'm like, that's when I knew more. My mother was like, why can't you go to the library? And I'm like, you don't understand. You just don't understand. So fast forward, we go on winter break from here, Yerushalayim, to America, and we're by my family, and we're on. I just impulsivity. So I heard this podcast a long time before, and even though I didn't really know I had ADHD, I did. And on the spot, I had his number, and I'm like, hey, could I have David Becker's number? I need to go see him. I'm in America now. And 5 minutes, boom, boom, boom. He's like, I'll ask him this, that. He gets it to me right before Shabbos. I email like a few hours before Shabbos. And then like Tuesday, I got an appointment. Now, here we go, $400 again. But it helped me get along the way. And he's like, okay, I'm not really seeing people, but a one-time consultation I'll do for you. And I'm in his office in Lakewood. And he says to me, it's really when my wife came in for the spouse part of the at the end. And when you're married, this happens a lot. Or for all those out there that they can't get their wife, or it's not working. So one of the ways to do it, which has worked for me, is since it's really true, a lot of professionals do it. But if they don't, then you make it a thing. You ask the guy, could you see your wife? And then so he said it, so you're not lying. And you make it part of the thing, and then you tell your wife, and then they understand, and they don't think that it's a knock against them, and then once they're involved already, they open up because they have a lot of stuff, so it works. So anyways, he tells my wife after, he's like, when I was talking to your husband, I was thinking like, this guy knows more about ADHD than me. I don't know what to tell him, and and then he told my wife, he's like, your husband has the ability to listen. Like the Mishnah in Avos, there's a sponge, different types of chachma and brains. So he's like, I can't sit for hours and hours and listen to podcasts. He's like, I have these books back here on my shelf, but like, so he got me on the way when he told me, he's like, listen, you're on the roller coaster. You went up. You didn't go down yet. You're in the air still. Once you're landing, your landing is going to be super geschmack. And then he said to my wife, he's like, there's something that attracted you while you got married. You have to remember why you saw something in Nesanel, even if you forgot. That's number one. So number two, ADHDers have the best Hanukkah parties. I want to change it to Purim and costumes. And my family, we do it, both of us. And we already from Hanukkah time already plan out what we're doing and match the Shalach Manis and go all that. Like we do it. And I was doing this for years as a bacher. But like now, family together. And so he's like, there are parts that you're going to shine and no one else is going to be able to have this, and remember that. And okay, so your house might be messy, you might be 3 years behind taxes, you're gonna get there, but don't forget the ADHD awesome, the superpower part. And halfway through the session, what happened was that I'm talking to him, and he's like, 1 second, does your wife have ADHD? And I'm like, not that I know of. And that minute my wife calls me and she's like, so she's like, the steering wheel is jammed. Now she was driving my mother's car in Lakewood, and she's like really scared driving her mother-in-law's. So I'm like, hold on, I have to run out of the appointment, fix the car. And then he's like, does your wife have ADHD? So it took like 8 months to really realize that he knows that he's talking about. And as I'm going more and more and more and more and more and more, my wife's like, okay, that sounds like me. That sounds like me. That sounds like me. Okay, I have it. There's no question. When my wife was a kid, so her school of Yaakov said, told her, my in-laws, like, your wife needs to be evaluated. She can't come back. I don't know if they said ADHD, whatever. So fine. So then my mother-in-law took her to the top expert, and it came out, and he evaluated and said gifted. Now there's a thing called twice exceptional gifted and ADHD overlap, but my in-laws are old school. It was very hard for me when I got here, just learning, watching my daughter in the morning. I thought I was going to learn 2 Siddharam, ended up just doing afternoon, but then falling asleep in shir, and then trying coffee and this, nothing was working. That's when I realized this is way more than and I was going to go back to that doctor that I said, but I never knew he over medicated me till I went to therapy. And then we saw a therapist over here. It was supposed to be for marriage, because what happened was I forgot to pick up my daughter one day from on the way home from Nicole, and my wife was like freaked out, and this, so Baruch Hashem, that ended up into marriage therapy. But this therapist, she kept on telling me, stop thinking about time management. The more you think about it, it's going to make you late. Don't think about it. That's in other words saying, let's try harder. Put down the books. Put away the books. Stop listening to the podcasts and just do. That's the worst of it. And it's working with my wife, and when I overheard, this is ADHD, and I knew I had it. We didn't know my wife. And Moshe Orlov talks all about this. It's not the John Gottman model. It's not bring back the love. It's fix the ADHD. Then it's the other way around. Ari Tuckman talks about this. And that therapist, she live and be well, made it worse. And then I ended up saying, like, my wife's like, I'm done. So she didn't go back. I like, could I go do more sessions? So I did. And then she's like, I don't know what happened. We had another kid, whatever it is. I'm like, we're going to do remote. I moved. So I'm like, we're going to do remote. Fine. We'll do over the phone, video call. Then we made up. I said, that's it. It's not working out. Therapy is not working out for me. So, because I'm talking too much, and she didn't know how to control it with ADHD and how, so I said, I want a half an hour. I don't want an hour session. So she said, fine. We did. We're supposed to talk on the phone. We booked the date. I dialed Mara. I'm ready. She doesn't call. I text her. I call her. She doesn't call me back. And I was burnt out that night. And I wasn't like, and I felt something already emotionally. So I just fell asleep. I texted her. She's like, okay, well, next week, same thing. Just never heard from her. So she ghosted me. Then a month later, my wife gets a call from her. I'm like, listen, I have money from you. I can't tell you who it's from, and it's specifically for you. And she's like, really? I want your bank information. I'm sending it over. And my wife, we believe she ended up giving us a refund. and it's a very big thing where a therapist says, I can't help you any further. And that's where you have to like run far away. So I was like horrified. And also she was certified in trauma, which is really crazy, and why that didn't work. And she, you know what she told me? She said, stop thinking about your parents. Everyone has baggage with their parents, and stop trying to impress your parents. It doesn't work. And that was like even more the worst thing to tell. So what happened was I said, I'm done with therapy. This is not for me. It's too short. It's too long. It's dragged out. I need coaching. So I got involved with Avi Friedman, who I went to Muganav with, and he knew me as a camper, and he was a counselor there. We spent a lot of time. We did something very cool. Whatsapp voice note coaching. I don't know if anyone else did this, but I told him there's no way. I tried Zoom a few times, but like he is like, I gotta go. So I just sent voice notes. He would answer back. I would implement what he said. It was great. WhatsApp coaching was incredible. I told him I don't want therapy, and what?
That's an interesting model.
And yeah, and he's like, I don't want therapy. He's like, don't worry. I am a certified life, family, and marriage and family therapist, but I don't do that anymore. I left therapy and I do coaching. I'm like, great. That was amazing, but it still didn't really fix the ADHD part. We figured out why I stopped washing the floor 5 minutes before Shkia. And what I do, and let's segue. Maybe we're going to segue into all the rapid fire, but I take my shower Erev Shabbos. I try to take a shower every morning. I like that. It's better for ADHDers. Have you ever heard a shower is equivalent to 2 hours of sleep? A hot
I've
steaming shower. So that's what they say. That's my coffee. I tell them I don't do coffee. I don't need. Just doesn't work. The caffeine and ADHD for me doesn't work. So I put on my suit and then go to chakras. And people look at me like, "Why are you wearing a tie? Do you get a mazel tov?" I'm like, "No, Shabbos Kodesh." I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, we have a yontiv tonight. I get a lot of comments. It's good. I give you a chizuk. I'm like, the biggest school in the world to be on time for Shabbos is getting ready early. And one real Yishalmi, like he's like, "Where's that brought down?" He tells me, "Efel zekatuv." He's like, "Where's that brought down?" I'm like, so that's what I do. We try to do the wash the floor Wednesday or Thursday. You have to split, decompartmentalize. Started doing these things. It changed 1% rule. Avi Friedman taught me. Shout out to him. It got me out of debt from $3,400 to now. It was $350. Now it's $342. 300 and last week $360. 1% rule. And then what happened was that Hashem sent me to a Torah Time Shabbaton. Now, I had a lot of experience in America before I got married, going to Project Inspire and Kesher Nafshi and Kairav Tuni, Shabbos Kairav Tuni. I didn't go to the Goda convention or Dirshu, but a lot of these big Shabbaton conventions at Torah Time records, and Torah Masar I didn't go to either, but I went to a lot of the other ones, and so I got a lot of experience recording these high-level conventions professionally and doing that. So then I'm here and I shift departments, Torah Time Yerushalayim, so I get an opportunity. There's this new organization called Atzmi, which it's for Hasidic Bachram, and it's very cool. They don't have this for Litvish yet, but it's like Kairav Tuni, where the top therapists and coaches come, and Bachram, and by Kairav Tuni, it's adults. Here, Bachram spend the Shabbos with Rebbeim and Mashkichim, and they could open up. And like one guy at the Shabbaton didn't speak to his parents for 3 years, and he's in Yerushalayim suffering and in yeshiva. So it's incredible. So I'm there, and the top therapist, who we should really get on this show, Klal Yisrael's top therapist, should get on this show, Rav Shlomi Ehrlich, shout out to him in Monsey. See, he was there. Hashem sent him 6,000 miles away. And that's how my healing real journey started. He told me, he's like, you got to get involved with Das Torah the first time. And then he came back to the second Shabbaton, Atzmi too. And that's where I'm like, I need to have an appointment with you. It's like, okay, book one with my secretary and this. And that's when I really started unpacking my childhood trauma. And before that, I did the Possible With You, Rav Yontif Glazer. That came to anytime he called me to record it. That was wonderful, but it's limited because it's hypnosis therapy, so it's limited. But then Rosh Ehrlich, and then the light bulb went off. When I first got married, I was allergic to therapy. So like my wife would to trauma. My wife would always say, I don't do therapy. And when you say don't do therapy, that means you need therapy. And I always say, I don't want to hear the word. Rav Yossi Ben Shushan says, a lot of people overuse the word traumatized. It's like slang. Oh, I'm traumatized. Seminary, high school girls use it. So like, you can't say traumatized. Don't say that. You don't say someone has trauma unless the actual clinician, a professional, see. And I was like so allergic to the word trauma. I didn't even know, but that was Hagufa. So I spent a lot of time. And now I'm in the next stage where you bring your wife in and you have sessions and you work out together, because there's marriage trauma, there's money trauma. But I did a lot of work. And then the war came, this Iran war, and I was again locked. And I called him back, and he's like, you got to get involved with breath work. I started doing that. Unbelievable. There's something called the SURF method from Kristen Carter and other people of the ADHD emotional regulation thing. It's different than breath work. It's similar. It's better for ADHDers. And what happened with the war really squeezed me, and I got corona trauma. It's a real thing. And I felt like locked, going into a bomb shelter, and the whole family sleeping in a bomb. And out from that came healing and freedom, and learning that I had to deal with the emotions and breath work. And then Rosh Ehrlich told me, he said, you're 30. And when you're 30, your brain solidifies all this pain you went through, and you're going to help Klal Yisrael one day. He also told me, you're a lot closer than you are right now. He's like, the war, he's like, first of all, he told me the experts are saying it's going to be short. I couldn't see that. My wife couldn't. We're in the war. And then he tells me, he's like, your brain solidifies. And he's like, one day you're going to help Klal Yisrael. And then he told my wife in a previous session, he's like, Your husband's going to be making a lot of money when they help in Klal Yisrael, and he's the one who's really pushed me to become a certified ADHD coach. I added that in, and I'm leaning towards taking Dave Ramsey's debt certification, debt coaching or financial coach. I'm specifically going to call it debt coach. There's there are people that are life coaches that call it a joy coach, this coach. There's many different, you could call it whatever you want. I'm going to specifically, because I want to target debt. I'm not a financial planner and I'm not going to be a financial coach. That's after how to invest. And let's segue into that in a minute. All the rapid fire questions. And I also want to go involved in business coaching too. For B'nai Torah, Cole guys, my cup of tea, my boat, because I'm out of coal a second time after our third child was born. And I'm like in and out of coal. And, by this pregnancy, I had to take a break, and now I'm taking a break again. And it was crazy because I was learning so much, but I never took a test. So I can't get smicha, but I'm retaining, so there's a lot of things that people, yeshiva guys, kol guys, and there's no one like in this space that I know. So that's my dream to become a certified ADHD life coach, certified ADHD coach, ADHD debt coach, and a debt coach and business, but in the lens of ADHD. I also, with Rabbi Grunhut, he was on this show, and I forgot to say that, major part of healing. David Becker connected me with him and said there's a new coach on the block in Yerushalayim, go meet him. And then I found this show by Googling him because I was so scared. I tried so many people. I didn't know if this is going to work. And then I listened to his whole episode, and then I did a lot of it. So that was my coaching before the therapy. And then I started, I don't remember which order. No, therapy started first, and then I started coaching. I just recently tried Vyvanse again. I got a medication, and we have to figure out. So now we're here. I'm in the last stage. I don't know how long this is going to take.
Yeah, so the skills that you've picked up during the course of this journey. So number one, you mentioned debt. What did the debt look like? What's it look like now? And what skills did you learn to get you there?
Or get out of there. Or get in there, get out of there. Okay, so I've been in debt over 10 times. Over 10 times. I used to say 16 times. I don't know. It's over 10 times. The first time credit cards is the worst. And I even say to neurotypical, I say to everyone, go listen to Dave Ramsey. I don't care if you think he's conservative or this. Credit cards are the worst. They're the biggest scam in the world, at least in America. Israeli credit cards are different. Don't get involved with them either. Don't get involved with any. Loans are bad. Don't owe money. It's old school. My uncle from Chicago told me, an alter yid from the Heim, from Europe, told him, he came, I don't know if he was in the war, but he moved over to Chicago. He told him, if you don't owe, you can't grow. This is very old school. My grandfather, Olav Shalom, taught me so many things. One of the things he used to say is, and I'd always buy a house that you can't afford. Old school. Don't do that. Do not do that. I'm still making that mistake now. I'm living in that. I have a big problem now. But so I had credit cards, and I had 2 different businesses running, money flying, ordering from vendors, this, that, and the other. And it just and then the incomes coming in, the sales, the revenues coming in, and then the auto pays charging. It was a disaster. Getting leases, don't do that. Don't do that. You're overspending. Most people get a lease because they get a nice car, $50,000 car, but they can't afford a $50,000 car. And then they end up not affording the lease. And my uncle, that same uncle from Chicago, told me, he's like, never judge somebody by the car. You could be driving around a Tesla, but it's a lease. That doesn't mean you're rich. So leases and finances are just as bad. Don't finance either. Then you're locked to a bank for 3 years. Who knows what's going to happen? And if you're in debt or you're broke or you have ADHD and you haven't figured it out, then it could it could catch up to you. Even all those people that are okay with it, I'm not okay with it. I'm a very big believer in Dave Ramsey, and even if you could afford it, like my other grandfather's like, well, we could afford it, it's fine. No, why is it bad? Because you are overspending. You're spending more than you should, and in the lease, in the finances, built in interest, and you're dumping money. Now, as a yid, Hashem benches you a certain amount of parnasa from Rosh Hashanah. So stay within the lanes. Stay within a true mensch uses the shefa that Hashem benches with him like a mensch. So you're going to start getting things you can't afford or borrow or overspend. And with credit cards, the faucet's always open, even if you're gecheshbend, even if you're budgeted. It doesn't matter. I was telling this to my father. He's like, I never did that, but you want to run a household correctly, get all your kids' debit cards, give them a certain amount for the month. It'll be the greatest thing for them and the greatest thing for you. You could allocate which kid gets how much money. You don't have to think about it. It's going to teach them budgeting at a young age. And you're not going to break the bank. You're not going to overspend. You're not going to think, oh man, I have this bill from American Express for $13,000 and I have a mortgage and I have this. What am I supposed to do? And you're not going to be able to sleep in it.
What skills did you learn to get yourself out of the hole?
So the first time I didn't know what to do. So I just took my American Express credit card, stuck it in my sock drawer and said, I'm not spending it. And I just was using my debit card, which is what you're supposed to do all year long. Not,
Right.
and then it got some to $10,000 and I was like 20 years old. So I was really scared. Or 20. No, I wasn't 20. I was 23. I was like scared. I never had a bill this big and I wasn't really working and I was young. So I just, one day I broke and I just said, that's it. And I took my car, pulled into a shul parking lot. I had the code to the shul. I went into the base medrash. No one was there. Went up to the bima and I just cried to Hashem. And I said, Hashem, I can't do this anymore. I don't know how I'm going to pay this off. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Please help me. And I just dove in for 10 minutes. I don't remember. I was really crying. There's something called tearless crying, where you cry without tears. I have that. Sometimes tears come out, but it's a real thing. So you can cry without tears. And a few days later, my father said, I need to talk to you. I said, what happened? He said, American Express called me. And first they went to my sister and then they went to him because even though it was a different account, we share the same address. And he's like, how much are you in debt? I'm like, around $10,000. He's like, okay, you got to figure this out. And then a few days later, he's like, okay. And he sat me down at the dining table with my mother and classic ADHD mother. My mother started crying. Like, why didn't you tell us? And I'm like, Mommy, I couldn't. And she still can't hear that. But I just couldn't tell her just the way I grew up, ADHD, all the stuff, the way I grew. And so my father wrote me a check for $7,500. And I took that check to TD Bank and deposited it in the ATM. Biggest mistake. And then the check got flagged because the biggest number one fraud is check fraud. People just write out huge numbers and they hope it goes through. So then I had to get the TD Bank manager to call with the Wells Fargo manager. And the check Baruch Hashem cleared, and then I was, but I still had $3,000 worth of debt. I went into marriage in debt, and then I asked my wife if I could use some of her money, and we were newly married, and she didn't want to say no. And ADHD, a lot of yeses, and then she felt bad about it. And then, long story short, so I made a lot of mistakes along the way. Then what happened was, we weren't really living in our means. That's really the problem. So, and I'm talking about points. We got to get points. We got to get miles. And we did fly to Eretz with miles. We did fly on vacation. We did those things, but it's limited. And then at a certain point here in Eretz, we were like, we make money. We're like always have more on the balance is always higher. So I'm like, what's going on over here? And we just would pay off the statement. So there's no interest. But then the next month when payday would come, we'd pay off the statement and then go into rollover and over and over and over. So I was like, that's it, no more credit cards. So my wife did Israeli. She ran it gone. And we took all that money after, and Bein Hazmanim, she did a Bein Hazmanim gone, or a few different, and with her other work. So she's like working 2 jobs, a morning job, got ADHD, overworking herself. And it was great. And we used cash and we bought groceries with cash. But then the same thing happened. And we didn't know, like Dave Ramsey, the first step of getting out of debt is cut the credit cards. It's the front cover of his book, Total Money Makeover. Cut the credit cards. So, I here, this is a funny story. So tell my wife, I'm listening to Dave Ramsey, Erev Pesach. I'm taking all those credit cards. I'm burning it in the fire on Pesach. So we might have to look at some bill, for records. We might have to look at, we need the last 4 digits. Something's going to come up in our ADHD disorganized life where if we do that, we're going to be up the creek a second. So we shut the credit cards, canceled them. That was very hard. They bully you. American Express didn't want to let me go. But sir, you've been with us for 16 years. All you do is, hi, I would like to cancel my card. Why is that? I'm no longer interested. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. I'm no longer interested. Thank you very much for all your service and benefits. I'm no longer interested. Can you please cancel my card? And just repeat that till they do that. So how did I get out of that the second time? I just committed myself $10 a day. And whatever extra money I have for the week, whatever day, because I'm living day to day, not month by month, not week by week, day to day. So there are many times my bank account has $0. So whatever you have for that day and whatever is extra. So if I go to the store and I buy groceries for my family and I have $3 left over, so just that goes to the credit card and just every day up to $10. So that's that.
Yes, and other skills you learned. So we've just talked about the money and business side. I think you talked about we mentioned in the pregame learning skills for davening, for prayer, which is not does not always come easy for ADHD. What did you learn in that area?
So you have to have a set minyan. It's really funny. I mentioned before my father is a certified marriage and family therapist. So believe it or not, one of his talmidim, and he's also a rebbe and a rav. So he connected me with one of his talmidim to be. He's like, my talmid has ADHD. Go work with him. And he was one of my original coaches, but he wasn't certified, so it was good. But this is the funniest part of the story. He tells me that on the way out of yeshiva, before he was getting married and going to work, so he asked my father, "I need some advice, Rabbi." So he said, my father told him, "You need the minyan. If you're not going to be in yeshiva anymore, and you have chavrusas, and you're going to be working, you need the minyan." And he said, "I'm giving that advice to you now." And it's funny. Years later, my father's advice came back to me, but my father never told me that. But that was the funny part. But it's both funny. So fast forward, I'm like Rabbi Daniel Rose, was it Rose?
Block.
Yeah. So he said he went to Rav Chaim Kanievsky, Tzarachian in the previous episode. So Rav Chaim Kanievsky's not with us. I went to Rav Gamliel Rabinovich Shlitza and Meir Sharm, and I asked him. I said it's very hard for me to go to davening, and he told me, "Ata tzarich et minyan shelcha." The same advice. And I sent a voice note to my father's Talmud, and I told him, a Kabbalist in Meir Sharm gave me the same advice. You need and he's like, I love it. And so that's really the advice I give. You have to have your minyan. You need a fallback minyan. Stay away from minyan factories, even though Shiner's is Gishmak or Lutzkin Lakewood or the Kosel and Eretz Yisrael. It's a safety. That's your scaffolding. That's your fallback. When you come back late from a wedding, you have a meeting, or you can't go to your minyan. What works for me is Mincha Gedola, the first Mariv. Nate's is my dream, but I'm working with Rabbi Grunhut, and there's a way to get to Nate's and reprogram if you're not going to sleep, but you need the minyan. You also have to have a minyan that's not too long. I don't like the breaks whole thing. Like Hashkama minyan is amazing. It's a short crowd. They have a kiddush after. You get an aliyah, like things that your minyan and the timing that works. Like an early minyan, it works for me. Some people like a late minyan. Whatever it is, it's your time to daven, no matter what. And even if you come late, you daven there in shul without a minyan. You keep it to the time. I never asked the Rav. That's what I say. So who am I to say that? But that's what works for me. Keep it at the same time. And a lot of people with ADHD, Rabbi Kalish talks about this. And Rabbi Gamliel told me, I said, I need parnasa. He's like, daven. And a lot of people with ADHD have that ability to really talk to Hashem. I have a friend that told me, he's like, when you daven, you're really talking to Hashem. I'm like, because I am. I'm talking. Who else am I talking to? So
tapping into that emotionality.
That's my thing with davening. Try to find a seat that's not going to distract you. I used to daven in the front. Now I daven in the back or in the middle. Don't I like davening for the Amen. You got to know where to do that, how to do that, which tunes, which community. Be very careful with that. Like I was once the Chazan, and like I was already up to Shema. I was already up to Shemona Esrei, and they were like still doing Shema. Like the minyan didn't wait for. You have to know where to do that. If it's like a place that doesn't like you yelling, Shmirabah, be normal, have your things, but have your minyan. If you fall in the minyan factory trap, it's very, very hard. You stay there lingering with all the guys, you'll schmooze, and you might give a lot of tzedakah to these guys that beg you for money. But like I said, like I said before, you have to respectfully. I was at the coastal the other day, and a guy's like, "Slicha," and he has the red strings, which is a scam in his avodah zarah, by the way. Yeah. And I just looked at him like, "Slachli, enli kesef," and it just hit him. He's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And like nobody knows. People just think you're from America and you have money and you're rich and you're made out of gold. It's the gold in the Medina, and you just have to be honest. Make yourself open. I'm like, "Sir, I'm really sorry. I'm a coal guy. I don't have money. I would love to help you. Give me your name. I would love to daven for you." That's what you got to do. Things like that. But if you're in the minyan factory, not only time management, money management. And it's not the place for someone with ADHD. You get lost for many different reasons. And you don't have the thing where Charlie Rari talks about it. I heard this from Summer Ginsburg. You don't have the concept of modeling, hang out with the people you want to be like. So when you have people from Nates to Chatzos, when we're walking around Talis and Tillin, you start ending up being Chitzanius Pneumius. You start hanging around like those people. So if you want to be productive, you got to get to a 6 o'clock, 6:15 chakras, and figure out how to get there, or an 8 o'clock, or a 7 o'clock. And you see people. This inspired me so much. Where I see people daven, like by Aleinu, they're Ashrei, after Ashrei, they're already packing up their tefillin. Okay, you shouldn't do that, but that's the earliest. By Aleinu, after Aleinu, they fold up their talis. So this is the basic halacha. And then they're in their car. Shir Shal Yom, they're already down the street. So, and there's somebody I wanted to talk to, but I was never able to schmooze with them because they have to go to their office. And if you hang out at the right minyan, it's going to rub off on you. Shabbos and Yontif too. Hashkama minyan, early minyan, Nates. It's always better. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Nates. Simchas Torah, Nates. Tisha B'Av, Nates. You got to go to these. It's not for us to kin us for 2 hours. You're going to go out of your mind. Go on Torah anytime. Watch the live stream. Open up an art scroll book. Do something meaningful. Find out your way to mourn for but to do things that are not best for us. It's going to be worse damage.
Got it. Any other areas of skill you wanted to mention before we start hanging up? Skills you learned?
2 sorts of impulsivity. So impulsivity could be good, it could be bad. On the way before we moved here to Eretz Yisrael, so I was scared. The Ukrainian war. We're going to move here. We're not going to move here. So what should we do? So we went to see Shmuel Kamenetsky, so the Gadol Dor of America. So the first time we got a flat tire on the way, I was like, "Are you on your phone?" And I might have looked at the screen or whatever, but really the manhole of the street was open. Some guy that was fixing the street didn't fix it, and I drove over and it blew out of my tire. So it wasn't really my fault. So a week later, I want to go to Shmuel Kamenetsky, but his Rebbitzin was nifter back then. It was recent. So now he has a gabbai, and it's harder to get in. So we really need to see him and to ask him if we should go to Eretz Yisrael. So, and this is also why Das Torah is so important, and especially ADHD. You need a Rebbe. You need to find someone. You don't have someone, connect to someone, find someone to Torah anytime, and then become close with them off Torah anytime. So, anyways, I go, and sometimes you can go to a tzaddik like this, but you need hadracha. So, the Rosh Kol of Cherry Hill is very close to the Shmuel. So I texted him, "How do I get an appointment?" And he told me, "Here's the Gabbai's number." And then I called the Gabbai, and he's like, "Okay, I could get you in at 3:30, whatever it was." And I came, and then 3 hours later, I come back from the Cherry Hill call, and I tell my wife, "I have an appointment with Shmuel Kamenetsky," and she like freaks out. And that was impulsivity, and it was important to me. And I am going to get an appointment from the Gadol, like all that ADHD. So,
right.
Opening up the Sukkot man and this first starting with Sukkah Depot, then Sukkah Outlet. So Sukkah Market? How did I open up the outlet of Philadelphia? So I knew Sukkah Depot. I saw their ads as a kid. So I just called up, and then I'm like, "Could I talk to your manager?" And they're like, "Who are you? What's your name?" "Oh, well, he's busy." And I'm like, "No, I need to talk to your manager." And they hung up on me. I did this like 5 or 6 times. Kept on saying, "Like, I need to talk to him. I need to talk to him." And finally, like, I want to talk. I want to open a store. He's the only guy that can help me. You can't help me. Over and over. I get a call from a guy. He's like, "I'm coming down to Lakewood, to the Sukkah Depot Lakewood store. I want to meet with you. Let's meet at Starbucks." And I'm sitting there in Starbucks with my laptop, and we're going over business. And he's like, "Do you know why I'm here?" And I'm like, "Why?" He says, because you called me so many times." He said, "That's my litmus test." He said, "I'm looking for people like you. You passed my test." He said, "I make it very difficult. Every year, people call up and want to open up a Sukkah outlet. And I don't know, they're going to really make money, or we're going to go lose money from them. We have to deliver all the Sukkos and Slach and then pick it up. It costs us a lot. I'm looking for people like you. You passed my test." And I've been working with them for like 6 or 8 years. And it's been great. Ups and downs, that, I'm making money, not making money. But impulsivity, use it the right way. So that's that. And marriage doesn't have to be so hard. And until you figure out if your wife also has ADHD, or if she doesn't, or she does, or if you have, it doesn't have to be so hard. Now, don't listen to anyone else that tells you that, "Oh, it's not supposed to be like that for everyone." That's the worst. That's the worst. Dr. Lee Balcom, or really, his name is Rabbi Ali Cohen on Torah Anytime, very good in marriage. He says the worst thing is to get advice from people that don't know what you're talking about, and never give advice in marriage if you're not certified or you know what you're talking about. So we're about to move to our 5th place in 4 years of marriage. We moved from, we were going to make we're going to move from Muncie right after Pesach. Well, then Corona, the Miron tragedy, and there's a war. So we went from Muncie, canceled our apartment, then to Passaic, then from Passaic, from my wife's family to my family, and then back to Passaic. Then we got our own apartment. So we were moving around Shana Rishona, and it was very, very difficult, but we didn't know it was all ADHD. And I never said this. So like I think we're already engaged, but I learned from Dr. David Lieberman, you don't say things when you're dating. Don't do that. Don't say diagnose. Don't date, and you bring it up at the right time. So I listened to his advice. So halfway through, so I'm like, I say to my wife, by the way, I have ADHD, and I didn't know anything about it. And she looks at me and she's like, you don't have ADHD. You're able to sit for hours during dating. There's no way you have it. And that was her response. But fast forward, all this stuff we didn't even know was ADHD, and then so marriage doesn't have to be so hard. That's my chizuk and my advice. Once you unpack it from the right professional, there's terrible therapists, there's good therapists, then you could thrive. But until you get there, so don't be discouraged. And it's very common also, people don't know this, that people with ADHD, specifically women, will threaten divorce a lot and will do like, I'm done with you. And Rabbi Schaefer talks about, Rabbi Zion Schaefer, and the 10 dumb mistakes that smart couples make. He talks about the first biggest mistake is I married the wrong person. That's normal, and everyone wakes up 4 months after, and the wife will say that to the husband. But for like to linger 3 years into marriage is very common with ADHD. And I even reached out to him, but he didn't know that. So I don't know if he didn't know that. He didn't guide me with that, and until I heard it on a podcast, it's common, and it's not divorce. It's this pain. It's just someone suffering. They're holding all the weight of the family, like Melissa Orlov talks about. So they're just like, I want a way out. But they don't really want to get divorced. They're just suffering. So that's the way they're saying it. Or some people threaten with divorce because that makes the husband shape up. But that doesn't work, threatening. So marriage doesn't have to be so hard. Once you figure it out, you could have the most beautiful marriage in the world, and you're going to be 10 times ahead of everyone else. Because you made all the mistakes in Shana Rishona, you made all the mistakes with debt, you made all the mistakes already. So now you have someone married for 10 years, and now they're in credit card debt. You could help them. You could be there for people. Yeah, that's really that's the marriage aspect. Oh, the other thing that we wanted to talk about in Yonei Kedusha, it's very common that it's difficult for ADHD. There's two different reasons. There's one reason for men, one reason for women. There's a lot of thing like that. Sarchian for that. Go do your own research. What I will say is, and then again, the same thing in marriage. If it's difficult, it's not in you. Don't feel bad, man, woman. You're not broken. Both men and women. There's something with ADHD that you have to figure out. Now, there's great resources. ADHD After Dark, Ari Tuckman. There's other books on it. And there's also maybe a Frum book. I'm not sure. There's not really some. Rabbi Schaefer has in his book like a paragraph this small. Rabbi Dr. Abraham J. Torsky in his book on marriage has something very short, and he says the minhag in Klal Yisrael is very to be quiet about this. Shout out to Dr. Nachi Feld, who is an ADHD chassan coach, chassan Rebbe. If you need his services, reach out to him before. It's never too late. Go back to biggest mistake that people make. They go back to their chassan Rebbe or their kala teacher. And you can do that, but that might be a disaster, which happens in the ADHD marriage thing. So what you got to do is you got to find somebody certified and melumid in ADHD and marriage. It could be a mashgiach, it could be a Rebbe. A lot of mashgiachim and rosh yeshivas don't know. Could be a from therapist, but you got to go get help. And something that is very good is to have chassan shmooze 2.0. That really helps after there's a lot of mistakes and after things didn't work out. It's very important to know that there are from resources, but we're haylig, so it's going to be with kedusha. It's going to be subtle. What helped me was davening. I used to daven years, time management, like I did for shidduchim. If you daven hard for shidduchim, daven for your ADHD. Then I switched to ADHD. Then I'm to conquer ADHD. Then I went to master ADHD. Now I'm davening Hashem to help me heal from ADHD. Davening, tefillah is the biggest ishtabo, says the Chazon Ish. Daven. Now, I also said fight. You have to fight, but incorrectly with your parents, with your wife, with your in-laws, with your rebbe. You have to push for you have to get, you have to be your own advocate, as they say in the hospital. You have to do that for ADHD. It's no one else is going to help you except Hashem, and you have to do that. Now, lastly, parnas on ADHD is hard many statistics and show, and there's many reasons why all the ADHD symptoms come out. It's hard to hold down a job. The number one people that get fired is ADHD, besides incarceration and addiction and divorce and all the other things. But the way to do it is to find the job that you like. That's what they say. Something that's stimulating geschmack and like Torah Anytime is amazing video, and moving around to a job. Real estate's very good. But here's the thing. That's really works for me. Some schoolists. Rav Pesach Kron's very big into the Gemara and Bava Kama. Daven for someone with ADHD for 40 days or someone in your boat. Anytime I hear someone lost a job, I daven for them for 40 days. Almost every time after 40 days of davening for somebody else, boom, Hashem sent me the Yeshua, or a few days before. Another thing that I do is I'm very machbin, and my daughter does this theory all in the side of Akei Yishalayim, is pick up bread. You follow the Gemara, you pick bread off the street. It doesn't mean Yishalayim, and you put it on the side or bag it up, or do be very careful. Benching is another very big schooler for Parnasa. And why am I saying this? Because the ADHD way of healing is to bring Hashem into it. The more you bring Hashem, you could change your mazel, you could change your fate, you could change your everything. You have bitachon. Yesterday, my grandfather sent me $2,000, and I went to the kosel and I davened into Hashem, and I just said, Hashem, you're the only one that could help me. I'm stuck. I don't have $2,000. And the day before, my grandfather told me, he's like, I'm not in the position of lending you money. And I said, Zadie, I'm not asking you, just telling my situation, that I have a lawyer after me. I didn't pay property tax in Yerushalayim, Kol Arnona, and it's not a good situation. I'm going to have to borrow from Gemach, and I don't know how I'm going to pay back. And that's the worst way to borrow. And he's like, I'm like, Zadie, our cousin has a Gemach. And then he, bitachon, davening at the kosel, mini shmirabah, tap into that. You do all the things that Chazal say, you'll change your ADHD. That's very important. And then lastly, something that I never heard anywhere else, but this is a very an incredible thing, and I want to open up, and I never really told anyone about it, and that is that when you use only cash is king. So you only use cash in the bank. So every time I make a purchase with my debit card, so let's say it's $9.99, so there's 1 cent over left, right? But many times it's not. It's like $8.75. So you have 15 cents left. But here in our store, when it's shkalim and dollars and the rate, so you're gonna have a lot. So every time there's cents left over in my bank account, and this has to do with audio processing. So I love solid numbers to know exactly how much is in the bank. I don't want to see 17. I don't want to see things like that. I want to know 1,200. I want to know exact numbers, or to the 5 or to the 10. So when it's 14.56, I will take 56 cents, move it over to my Meister account. Even if it's 99 cents, anything under $1. And I've then listened to the Rambam and donated to like 16 yeshivas. I gave the Mir $10, I gave Panovich $10, I gave Ner Yisrael $10. And then you think with ADHD, you think, I want to give $1,000. I want to drop 10,000. The Rambam says the smaller is better. And then also, I just bought into the Mir for $10. I have a chelik in that. I gave to Panovich. I gave to this. And you could give to these. A secret, a lot of these campaigns, the minimum is $10 or 35 shekels. So that and you click anonymous. Don't put your name if you're embarrassed. But then you're donating more. Sometimes you're better, because these guys that drop 50 grand, that's to one institution, maybe, or they do it a few times a year, whatever it is. But you're giving $10 to so many places all along. Now, how do you save up for that? Every cent counts, and this is the way. The 1% rule had a. What's the point? The point is how to bring Hashem into every purchase. You really want to be matzliach every time. So I buy something, right after I put the cents in the Meister account. So I'm bringing Hashem into every transaction I make. If I'm remembering Hashem in every transaction, and I'm davening for Parnasa, and the last school I want to say is Parshas Aman, and I have a chavrusa in my call, and I told him once I mentioned, like, yeah, I say that every day. And he's like, that's a big school of Parnasa. I'm like, yeah, that's why I do it. But I mean, every day after Shacharis, and Nusach Sfard has more psukim than Nusach Ashkenaz, and even on Shabbos you're allowed to say without the Yerotzim. But tap in. The Mishnah Berurah says this is the biggest thing for Parnasa. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to get rich by doing it. You have to do it right. You don't just wear a red string, which is Avodah Zarah. You have to bring Chazal, bring the Gemara, bring Emunah, bring Hashem into your life. Hashem didn't give you this for naught. If you are from Yid, because as Rav Gamliel Rabbi Navid says, statistics are for Goyim. So don't do it all these ADHD people. Do that. But the best way to heal is to bring Hashem into your life. You have more. How does it go? Let go and let God. Add the D into the let go and let God in.
How can people find it there to get all of you?
My WhatsApp's the best. My 856-745-9588 +1 for all those, country code. WhatsApp, or ask someone that knows me. You could reach out to Rabbi Reich if you want to find me. I'm findable. Torah Anytime, you can find me over there. And I'm happy to. I'm not certified yet, so I'm not taking anyone on. But if anyone wants like any advice or any tips, like I'm happy to give suggestions to anyone out there that's struggling and needs something. Again, I'm not certified, and I want to say that with caution because a lot of people who aren't certified don't give advice. But if anyone wants to order something from me, I would be very happy to sell a shul, a parochas for $20,000, or if somebody just wants to buy a tefillin bag for their son's bar mitzvah, or something nice for if you want to buy Judaica, someone needs a sukkah this year or anything, or someone has a question about Torah Anytime, or if someone wants to book me to record an event, professional live stream, or just a recording, they can reach out to me over there. Event video is the other business, the Sukkot man, the Talis man, Nesanel at TorahAnytime.com. You can reach me there, or anywhere else you know where to find me.
Okay, excellent. Nesanel Epstein, it's been a great conversation. Great to hear your story. Thank you again for listening to this episode of the ADHD Heroes podcast. For questions about the podcast, you can email us at adhdheroespodcast@gmail.com. Also, for sponsorships or to share your story, your ADHD story, you can also email us at the same place, adhdheroespodcast@gmail.com. To be in touch with me about ADHD coaching, writing, or speaking engagements, you can email me at rsreichadhdcoach@gmail.com. Be sure to check out my website, rsreich.com, adhdcoach.com. You can follow me on LinkedIn, or you can check out my blog on nefesh.org. Check out my blog there under my name. Important disclaimer: podcasts are great, but they do not take the place of mental health help or medical help. So if you need help with mental health or need a doctor, be sure to be in contact with some of them. Please, if you like this show, please rate, review, and share with a friend. That's how these things get out there. Thank you again for listening, and thank you to our producers at Pretty Easy Podcasts.